In the HBO show Succession, the family patriarch Logan Roy takes a dim view of corporations.
Off.
He argues that companies don't really exist, and he gives Ford as an example. In his view, a company is merely a time-saving expression for a collection of financial interests. This is an interesting take and demonstrates the character's cutthroat approach to business. Not to get too literary here, but we know exactly what he stands for after hearing that line. I don't think he's right, but I don't think he's wrong either. I do think he makes a very important point about business, though indirectly. Management is fundamentally the coordination of shared interests, usually financial, but not always. If this is the foundational guiding principle, everyone should get along, right? Well, in practice, that's not the case. And there are a lot of people who get paid a lot of money to foster alignment, sometimes even successfully. Fortunately, for IT people, there's a better way. That better way is, drumroll please, business relationship management. Like constellations, this can mean different things to different people depending on who you're talking to. If you're a Libra, please watch our video on Microsoft 365 governance. But know that business relationship management can be a role, a capability, or a practice. It has to exist, though. But why must it exist? This answer may shock you. It shouldn't, but it may. It's because IT doesn't do stuff for its own sake. IT is responsible for facilitating the business, making it possible for the business, nonprofit, or government to deliver on its obligations to its stakeholders. Simply put, if you can't draw the line between what you're doing and the value generated for the business, or worse, if you're actively impeding a business objective, something has to change. You can avoid this scenario with effective business relationship management. To help you do this, we've generated a few insights that you might find useful. First, remember that it's not just about communication. You actually have to deliver the business value that you talk about. That doesn't mean just delivering on what they want, by the way. Henry Ford famously said that if he'd asked his customers what they wanted, they'd have said faster horses. Or maybe he didn't, but I like the point, so I think we'll leave it in. Anyway, the idea here is that you have to drive business value in everything you do, not merely serve as order takers. Sometimes those are the same thing, but not always. Giddy up. Next, you'll want to understand your current state to figure out your path forward. Make sure you don't just charge in and dictate what should be done. Take your time, get to understand what makes your org tick. Build a practice that is based on best fit, not just what's expedient. Third, you'll want to think about BRM less as a conduit between IT and the business and more as an independent driver of value. As a relationship manager, you shouldn't just be a messenger. You're not a mediator at a settlement conference or a lawyer managing a divorce. You should add value, be an advocate, facilitate innovation, and be an influencer. If you're not adding value, you're an unnecessary pit stop. Nobody hits up the BP just to look around. Fourth, the BRM role must align with the maturity of the organization it serves. It makes no sense for an advanced relationship management practice to exist in an organization that doesn't have the means to execute that process. Literally no sense. Before you can create business value, you'll need to get to the bottom of service and project delivery. Put the fires out before you hang new curtains. Business relationship management is essential, but it's often not the most urgent thing on a CIO's plate, so make sure your effort goes to the right place. Finally, you can't be a reliable partner if you don't know much about the business you're in. As a BRM, you must obviously be competent at IT process management, that goes without saying, but you can really stand out by understanding what your business does and how it makes money. You would be shocked at how many people in back-end process roles lack a fundamental understanding of how the businesses they support operate. It's hard to be strategic in the function you're supporting if it's incomprehensible to you. This will come with time, but a big part of the value of embedding yourself with your business is that you'll be able to offer advice and pushback that makes sense when it makes sense. If you worked for a car company and chimed in at a meeting, interesting, but remind me what a wheel is again. You might have some trouble building credibility in other areas. Fortunately, if you play your cards right and if you follow the process, you'll come out smelling like roses. I'm joined today by Allison Straker, a Principal Advisory Director in our CIO practice here at Infotech. Welcome, Allison.
Hi there, Jeremy.
So my first question for you should be an easy one, bit of a layup to kick off our interview, and that is, what is business relationship management? Because I feel like that means different things to different people.
Yeah, and it sounds like a simple question, but it's a really good one because a lot of people don't really understand the difference, right? They think business relationship management. Well, I have a relationship with my colleagues. I, see them in the hallway. I say hello. Maybe I take them to coffee. We have a cordial relationship, but that's not really what business relationship management is. It's really about the strategic engagement. It's about strategic business relationship. Do I really have an understanding of what is needed by the different parts of the organization? Am I able to bring that all together and really support what we need to move forward?
So it goes a little bit deeper than, say, shuttle diplomacy, right? When I think about shuttle diplomacy, that's this group wants this, that group wants this. And I sort of go back and forth between them, relaying their demands. So business relationship manager is more than that.
Absolutely. Yeah. We don't want anyone to be a gatekeeper. It's not about, like you said, going back and forth. It's about how do we bring it all together? How do we make this organization one big, happy, dysfunctional family? How do we bring all those pieces together and make sure that we're achieving the goals that we need to within the organization
Yeah. Dysfunctional in the best kind of way.
in the most loving way?
Yes, of course. That's what we expect from our corporations is love. So when I think about this, then I think, okay, let me make a reference back to the introduction of this video where I talk about corporations as being people with collections of shared interests, right? Every business in my experience wants to do three things, right? They want to make money, more of it. They want to maybe be more efficient doing it, and they want to reduce risk, all so that they can, make more of a profit. So it seems like everybody probably should be on the same page. Why do we even need business relationship managers?
Because there are nuances within there that everyone wants to achieve in order to achieve those three goals, right? So, you might have an HR department who has specific needs. You might have sales who has specific needs. You might have various departments will have their different needs, and all of them should collectively all roll up to what the organization needs as a whole. But those needs aren't necessarily all shared, aren't all understood, definitely not within all levels of IT, so that we can help them to achieve those goals. And we're not really good at connecting the dots. And so then we have a bit of a wall between us where we feel like we're not really both doing what's needed to help the organization move forward.
So I'm going to give a scenario and I want you to react to it if you would. So I work for an organization, maybe they want to expand globally. Right. And that, of course, has implications for everyone. HR people need to skill up on labor laws in the new country. Manufacturing people need to build the assembly lines, right, in those new countries and, recruit employees, maybe launch new products. Marketing needs to translate all their documents, right? And IT, of course, will need to do things like upgrade their ERP to account for, a new geography, right? A place where they'll be located. So when I think about this, I see a whole bunch of not necessarily competing interests, but there are some organizations that are going to have to support all sorts of those different needs. So I'm in IT. I have to support my own ERP upgrade or do that for finance, but I've also got to support the HRIS upgrade, and I've got to support maybe the operational technology for the assembly lines. How do I prioritize given my new strategic reality? I've got this mandate from on high. How do I actually say, okay, I'm going to work on the ERP first and then I'm going to work on the HRIS? Or do I? Is that my job?
Well, and that's part of the whole idea of business relationship management. It's about bringing those ideas together. It's about understanding what are the priorities. In IT, it's not really fair for us to be able to decide, I like Jeremy's team better, so I'm going to put Jeremy's priorities first over somebody else's. It's not fair for that to be on me. But what I can do is make sure that I have the right conversations, that I'm at the right tables to be able to share and understand and what those priorities are so that we can work on the right priorities for the organization's goals.
Okay. So if it's about that prioritization, then I assume I have to bring people to the table to have this conversation with me. So this blueprint is titled Embedding Business Relationship Management in IT. Is that my job as a CIO to sort of facilitate that relationship? Shouldn't they be reaching out to me?
It's a partnership, right? So it should really be a give and take. The challenge is, especially depending on where somebody's coming from, what their experiences have been with IT. Some people have come from a world where IT is there to deliver orders. That doesn't work for IT in most cases. IT generally wants to be at the table and be able to truly partner so that they can have an understanding of, well, why is it that we're looking at this particular solution? What's the problem behind it? What are we actually trying to solve for? Let's have some conversations to better understand maybe this is the right solution. Maybe it's not. Maybe it is the right solution, but we need to do it slightly differently to best accomplish your goals. Keeping in mind that we've got constraints, whether it's, risk, security, whether it's, integrations with other systems.
So how do we get that seat at the table then? That's a phrase that I've heard used in many different contexts over many different years. Everybody seems to want a seat at the table. The table's getting real big at this point.
It's quite full.
And we love IT. We work for an IT advisory firm. We're big fans of the concept, but there are many organizations where IT isn't sort of afforded that level. The IT director might not sit on the C-suite. They might not have a literal seat at the table. How do you demonstrate to your stakeholders that this is something that they should invest in? Is it horror stories? Is it proofs of concept? Is it just doing your best and hoping that they agree? How do I demonstrate that value?
It's a combination of all of the above. It's really about, business relationship management. So it's about understanding what their challenges are. It's about communicating with them, helping to grow where they are. So for example, AI, everyone's talking AI. A lot of business units will come and say, here are the things I want to do in AI. But we need to have that understanding about what problems are they trying to solve, so that we can help them, whether it is with AI or with some other kind of solution. We need to show our value. We need to show what we can bring to the table, figuratively speaking, what we can offer to them so that they can start to see value and so that they'll continue to want to engage with us. So you're right. It's not just me, going to my business partner and saying, tell me what are your priorities, because that will get kind of tiring for the business partner. It's not really exciting for them, doesn't really add value for them. But on the other hand, if our conversation is more, here are some of the things I've seen. Here are some of the challenges I've seen. Here are some of the wins I've seen. Here are some things that I've seen in other similar organizations or at conferences or any number of things. We're able to bring that as value to the table. Now we're able to have better conversations with our partners because they'll more likely want to hear from us.
So business relationship management, it's on everybody's mind. I think to some degree, it's one of those things that you do it whether you intentionally are doing it or not. In my experience, everybody has relationships within the businesses that they work for. Nobody's truly a silo. But there are obviously things that differentiate the folks who are doing things right from the folks who are doing things wrong. So what are some of the things that people typically get wrong when they're looking to practice business relationship management?
Yeah, I think, and part of it kind of comes into, everybody's doing it, but they're not necessarily really doing it because it's really about the strategic engagements. It's about understanding what is somebody's strategy, where are they going? It's about making sure that you're setting yourself up so that you can have those right conversations. Those are things that a lot of IT organizations find challenging. Some of the IT leaders who I speak to, some of them, not all, are very much technical. They know their expertise. They know their subject matter area. They know how to have conversations around that, but they don't necessarily know how to convey it in such a way that someone outside of IT can relate to and can understand and can appreciate and feel like they're being heard within with respect to their part of the organization, right? So if I talk to sales and I talk to them about, whatever platform they've got, they'll say, yep, that sounds great. If I go into some of the technical details, I'm starting to lose them. So I really need to speak to, well, what are the things that they care about? Getting more sales, getting more customers, all of those kind of things. What is it that our technology is doing to best enable those things? That's what I need to be able to do. And that's what a lot of organizations and leaders find challenging.
So business relationship management is both a skill, a competency, a capability, and a job that people have, like an actual job title. If you go on LinkedIn, you'll find people with the title business relationship manager. So I've got a two-parter here for you.
Okay.
And that is, what are some of the skills that a good business relationship manager, whether it's a dedicated individual or somebody just wearing a hat, what are some of the skills that they have? And then also, how do I know when I need a business relationship manager full-time, when it can't be a hat, when I have to have a person?
Yeah. So, in terms of the skills, one of the things you want is someone who has a holistic view. So you want someone who is not just focused on the needs or understand the needs of a particular department, but it's really looking at things from an enterprise perspective and kind of puts aside the perspective of their particular area so that they can really look at the bigger picture. So that holistic view is difficult, but something that's really required if you want to have that seat at the table. Another thing that you want is, in order to, again, have that seat at the table, you want to be able to have some business acumen. You want to understand if someone is talking to you from whether it's sales or whatever other manufacturing, whatever part of the organization that they're coming from. You want to be able to understand them. You also want to make sure that the conversations that you have are not transactional. So from a skill perspective, we want someone who can consistently engage and who has that empathy to be able to have, ongoing conversations with their partners to really help to, kind of build up the capabilities throughout the organization. Sometimes it is a role and sometimes it's a portion of somebody's role. And one of the things is to your question, understand when it's appropriate to do one versus another. Some organizations that I'll speak to might be quite small. If you've got 10 people in IT, you're probably not going to have a specific person dedicated to be the business relationship management. I've heard of some, but in general, it's not often going to be the case. So you basically want to look at things like, what are some of the constraints in our organization? Whether that's the size, could also be some of the expertise, the acumen that we have within our organization. Do we have people who have this particular skill set? Is that something that we can easily support and enable within our organization? So that's another thing that you definitely want to consider. Then you also want to look at the other side of it. What's the business need? What are the things that is there a lot of demand? Do they understand what's going on within, or are they able to, hopefully they understand what's going on within their world, but are they able to communicate that effectively? Do you have an understanding about what's going on in their world? Are there a lot of pieces that they have to deal with? If so, even if they're not coming to the table with a lot of specific demand, there may be a lot of opportunity where IT can really help to enable them. All of those are things that we want to take into account as well. So it's both the supply and the demand that we kind of need to think about to determine, does it make sense for us to have a full-time person, or does it make sense for somebody to wear multiple hats?
So this is all great information, and I understand that you and your team have prepared some research material that could be useful to anybody who's looking to embed business relationship management within their IT function. So could you tell me a little bit about what that methodology looks like and what you get out of it at the end if you go through it?
So I use the acronym ASPIRE so I can remember and better convey to you guys what the steps are that we need to take. And the first one for the A is assess. We want to understand, what is the landscape like? What does our business think about IT? How do they currently engage with IT? What are some of the challenges there? We want to look at it both from the business's perspective and from IT's perspective as well. All of that is to really help us to better understand what are some of the challenges, what's our maturity, our relationship maturity like, and what are the things that we might need to address through some kind of strategic business relationship management and engagement. The second part is situate. So again, we want to figure out, we understand what the landscape is and what some of the challenges are. What does that mean for us? What are some of the goals that we need from a business relationship practice perspective? Again, doesn't matter whether it's a role or a set of people who are doing it off the side of their desk. What is that goal? What are those set of goals that we need to achieve? What's that vision that we have for our practice? That's what we want to look at there. And the P is for plan. So we want to think about, great, so now we understand our problems, we know where we're trying to go. What is it that we need to do to make this a reality? Part of that is coming up with an operating model, understanding, well, how do we want this business relationship management magical thing to happen within our organization? What does it actually mean? Let's just say you have a role, does it mean that nobody else in the organization is going to have a relationship with their partners? We want to think about, how does everyone need to interact? What does that mean for everybody within the organization so that we can best support this practice? So the next thing we want to think about is implement. How do we actually need to go forward with this? So what we'll look at are things like, what's our engagement plan? So great, I'm going to be, maybe in addition to another role or maybe on its own, I'm going to be now engaging with stakeholders. How do I actually do that? What is my plan? How do I make sure that I'm going to stick to it? So we want to think about what's that engagement plan? Make sure we have something created there. We then want to look at the R and the E of ASPIRE. How do we reassess What are our metrics? So we've set out some goals. How do we make sure that we've actually achieved those goals? A lot of organizations, or some organizations, I should really say, have the challenge where they go and they put forward a lot of effort to set forth this business relationship practice. And then at the end, others people are looking on the sidelines and thinking, did you actually achieve anything? So part of the reassessment, part of looking at those metrics is understanding or thinking about, did we achieve those results that we were actually setting out to achieve?
Thank you so much for your insight today, Allison.
You're welcome. It was fun.
If you enjoyed this, please check us out at infotech.com.